comes for Doug, okay? Was the second incursion made by the same angels who made the first incursion? Also, does Scripture give us any clue as to when the angels are punished, that is, placed in the pit?
Mm-hmm. Well, again, as I would see it, I think that the angels, it's going to be a different batch. Again, Rob would see that differently, but as I see it, it's going to be a different batch. And the reason and the text that we have is from 2 Peter, where it says that the angels that did not keep their first estate, which we also have, of course, in Jude, which is a very nice and clear and concise passage. I'll actually go to that one first. It says that the angels who did not keep their proper domain but left their own abode, he has reserved in everlasting chains under darkness for the judgment of the great day, as Sodom and Gomorrah and the surrounding cities, of course. Now, so when we also see that in 2 Peter, he's making reference here. He says, "For if God did not spare the angels who sinned, but cast them down to Tartarus, and deliver them into chains of darkness to be reserved for judgment, and did not spare the ancient world, but saved Noah." So what seems to be the case is that those particular angels were cast down into this place called Tartarus. They are there. I believe that they're going to get out in Revelation chapter 9 when the angel who comes down from heaven, he's cast down, probably Satan, perhaps. He's going to have the key to the bottomless pit or the abyss. He's going to open it up, and those demon angels are going to come out of there, and they're steaming mad for sure. So that's how I would see what happened to those particular those angels.
I would definitely agree with that. I think the original incursion angels are the ones that were being referred to in the passage from Enoch that I showed, that they were being severely judged. They are the ones that Peter and Jude are referring to that were bound in chains and put into Tartarus. The question on the table, were there any other angels that ever came back and did it again? I would say there's no evidence whatsoever that they did. But if there was a second incursion, then it would definitely have to be a second batch.
No, I guess the trouble that I see with your theory, and I think many others do as well, Rob, is that now getting onto the boat, we have, at least according to your theory, 3 women, or at least one of the 3, right, that has some bad DNA. So it seems to go against the whole idea of why God would get these people out of there. He's getting Noah, who is tamim, right, which is a word that could be used to speak of someone who is genetically pure. But one of the people on his boat who's going to help to bring about more humans is already stained. So why? I mean, so that means that basically everybody who is related to Ham is going to be stained with this DNA. So that there's a bigger problem than anything before. Now you've got a third of mankind, through no fault of their own, through no choice of their own, are now tainted with this Nephilim DNA, and that would seem to be kind of really counterintuitive to what God was trying to do. I mean, everything we talk about is that God was trying to basically purge the world. He did the world a favor because he got rid of all this bad DNA, but it just happened to get on the boat. I mean, that just doesn't seem logical or consistent, not let alone I don't think it goes with what Genesis chapter 6 is actually saying. But you've got a real issue there. And what I think happens is that, now, because see, Satan was shooting with a shotgun before. He thought that the seed of the woman was going to come through anybody in the whole planet, for all he knew. But then afterward, we have God telling Abraham that it's going to be through your seed. So now he's got a real target. So now we find that the angels have come again, and we certainly find the story of the Nephilim being repeated in Numbers 13. I mean, I would happen to agree with you that it's a bummer we don't have a second witness to that to the angels actually coming. But let's be frank about this. We've got 11 chapters that are dealing with 1,500 years. They're skipping over a lot of stuff, right? They're giving us the bare bones necessity to get us up to speed, because the real star of the show is Abraham and all of his descendants, right? From Genesis 12 all the way to Revelation 22, it's about the nation of Israel, the 12 tribes of Israel. And so, the first 11 chapters are just setting the stage. They're giving us all that background information. It's almost like the words that go up on Star Wars, right? At the beginning there, just to give you the basic scenario of where we are, right? And we're trying to parse those particular words to this story that there isn't a lot in there. We have 11 chapters, all very, very significant, granted, but there's not a lot to go on. So that's how I would see that, and I think the fact that we have now the Nephilim in Numbers 13 is the fulfillment of that. That is your second witness. There's no second witness of the sons of God coming down and doing it again, like you say. I agree with, there isn't one. But as far as as far as the Nephilim, we certainly find them, and it would seem to be that it's the same thing from the sons of God doing the thing in the first place. So I'm going to see if I can share my screen with you. I was having a little trouble with it earlier for some strange reason. I'm not sure why. But, if you go back and we look at Genesis chapter 6, I just want to take people through so that, they can see this for themselves, what the text is saying. And I'm not sure, again, I apologize, but my computer, for some reason, does not want to share my screen. Anyway, I'll just kind of explain it. It's so much more fun when I can show you, though. But, if we start off here in Genesis chapter 6, verse 1, what we have there is so it was when men multiplied on the face of the earth, Pnei Adamah, and daughters were born to them, to these men. And it says, Vayir'u b'nei ha'elohim, and the sons of God saw, et banot Adam, ki tovot henna, that they saw that they were good. All right, it doesn't say good for what. The word tovot doesn't necessarily mean beautiful. That's how it's been translated. In Greek, it is the word kalos. So again, it's this idea of good. It could certainly mean beautiful, but I don't get the impression that these angels were like, hey, she's really pretty. I'd like to have a little family with her. I don't get that impression. I get the idea that these angels were very bad, but that's my conjecture. So. But anyway, I think that they were good, and it says Vayikach lehem nashim, and it says and they took. Now the word to take is not a violent thing. Some people say, well, they violently took them. That's not true at all. It's the same word. Lakach is the same word that you would use for a regular guy to take a regular woman to be his wife. That's the standard word, to take a wife. Doesn't mean that you took her and beat her over the head and all that stuff. And it says. And they took from all that they chose, and so then God says that my spirit will not strive, etc. And then we have verse 4, and it says, now, and this is interesting, okay, because we generally don't have the subject at the beginning of the sentence. That is not good Hebrew grammar. Good Hebrew grammar would tell us that we would have the verb at the beginning, but when you put the subject at the beginning, you're drawing attention to it. It becomes a parenthetical statement. They're telling us, and this whole thing is about what happened in those days when men began to multiply on the face of the earth and daughters were born to them. That's the context.
What days?
The text tells us the days when the sons of God.
They do that.
Well, according to the text, this is what we get from the text. Now, you're going to pull in the book of Enoch,
as
that's fine.
You and everybody else, so I'm going to call you a hypocrite if you're going to judge me on that.
No, in fact, I don't. I don't pull in the book of Enoch here. I don't see the need to. I stick just with Genesis chapter 6. Call me simple, but I think that's enough. I think because what I consider to be authoritative is the Bible, and I know you do too. So I'm not saying that you don't, but I look at the book of Enoch as a secondary, a commentary. I think it's very interesting. I like studying it. I remember the first time I read it, I was blown away. But I'm just not ready to say that it's on equal footing. So I'm going to just parse this whole thing out from Genesis chapter 6. And what I get from the text that is given to me is that the when is when men began to multiply on the face of the earth. Now we can, look at it, the days of Yared, which is when they came down. Okay, I'm fine with that. But to then say that Genesis chapter 6 has to be pointing back to the days of Jared, I just don't see that. I mean, we have now the earth, the Nephilim were on the earth by Yamim Hahem in those days, Begam Achrechen. Okay, so they were on the earth in those days, and also after that, Asher Yavo Bnei Elohim El Banota Adam. Okay, so it's telling us this is already. So when the sons of God came down, is now being divided into two different eras. Okay, this word here is doing double duty. All right, so there's Nephilim on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God came to they came to the daughters of men, and they gave birth by them. Okay, so I see this word as doing double duty. That the word when, to me, it makes good sense in the Hebrew grammar. So you have Bayimim Hahem Vegam Achrechen. So that's right there. It's saying in those days and also afterward, when. So right, you see that in those days and also afterward, when the sons of God came and took the daughters of men. Okay, so it's already telling me right there that they did it twice. They did it twice. Right there in the text is what they're telling me, that they did it twice. So, it'd be great if it told me again somewhere in the Bible, but it doesn't. But it tells me right here that they did it then, and they did it after that as well.
Okay, and the subject that we're talking about are the Nephilim that were produced by these characters. The same ones that we're talking about were men of renown from Olam. Olam. Long time ago, Olam. And you were asking me where do I get the same from. I was talking about the King James Bible, but it's apparently right here in the Hebrew also. So that's where they're getting the same from. So it's not like it's an italicized word that the King James translators inserted. The Nephilim that you're talking about in the land of Canaan are Nephilim that came from other Nephilim, not from angels. We saw the giants, the Nephilim, the sons of Anak, which come of or from the Nephilim, the giants. These are Nephilim that came from other Nephilim. Dr. Michael Heiser also points this out in one of his lectures. Although he maintains his status as a multiple incursion guy, he admits that there's absolutely no reason to do so, because he shows how the word Nephilim is actually spelled two different ways in Numbers 13:33, and he says he believes that the author is linking the Nephilim of the post-flood world with the Nephilim of the pre-flood world, and he says, and if that's true, if you do that, you have no need for the continual cohabitation of angels with women. You have a genetic link intact.
We saw the Nephilim, ha-Nephilim there. The Anakites are from the Nephilim. This phrase, from the Nephilim, is min ha-Nephilim. You'll notice there's no yod here. You have the same word spelled two different ways. I think the reason why this is done here is because this is the way it's spelled in Genesis 6. The writer wants to link these Nephilim after the flood with the ones before the flood. And if that's the case, if the Anakim came from, in other words, were related to the Nephilim from before the flood, you don't need the continual cohabitation. You have a genetic relationship intact, so to speak.
Which is exactly what I've been saying all along. Now, to answer some of the things that you brought up, you were saying that it doesn't make any sense for God to wipe out the whole world, but to allow the women, in my thesis, to go ahead and get on the ark with tainted genetics. And you said that, well, everybody's going to have tainted genetics because of that, because we all come from the three sons of Noah. And I have repeatedly showed this simple Punnett square showing a 50-50 hybrid female would give the opportunity to have a 50-50 chance for 100% normal offspring or tainted offspring, depending on which chromosome she contributes. If she contributes a bad one, and the male, the good three sons of Noah, if he gives an X and she gives a bad X, then you got a female Nephilim. If he contributes his Y and she contributes a bad X, you get a Nephilim male. But if she's a 50-50 hybrid and has a good chromosome, then she produces either 100% normal females or 100% normal males. So it's not really a problem. at all, actually. But your thesis basically has God saying, wow, the whole world was corrupted by the activity of the angels mating with women. The whole earth, all flesh had become corrupted. So I'm going to wipe everything out, preserve 4 helpless women, and then after the flood, okay, angels, pick up where you left off. There's only 4 left. Go for it. That makes absolutely no sense to me at all. When you're not addressing the root cause, I'm addressing the root cause. The root cause was done with 700 years before the flood. God says, you guys are done. You're bound up. That's not going to happen again. Michael the archangel looks at the severity of the judgment. He goes, dude, no way. Wow, nobody's going to do that again. The severity had to be so severe so that angels wouldn't do it again. So the root cause is dealt with. This is just a lingering after effect that is dealt with by the Israelites. No problem. Piece of cake. And confirmed again by the fact that even Moses says, not only does he tell us that all the world, the whole world, including the land of Canaan, was populated by the occupants on the ark, but then you have a second witness in Numbers 13 saying these are Nephilim that came from other Nephilim, not angels. And then when we get throughout the Torah, where every single place that he says utterly destroy these people, kill the women, kill the children, kill the animals, and every single case, and it goes namely the Amorites, the Hittites, the Jebusites, etc., these are all the exact same people in the table of nations that Moses wrote about in Genesis chapter 10, specifically verses 6 through 20. And in every case, the pedigree is given. The father is a human being, going back to Ham. So if we go to Genesis chapter 6, we see that Noah has found grace, and he's perfect in his generations. You mentioned that's Tamim. He's genetically pure, and he has 3 sons. So if a genetically pure guy, and presumably his wife is too, she's the daughter of Enoch according to Joshua. You got 3 completely normal human being sons right there. And then you get to verse 12, and then all flesh is corrupted. How much is all? Well, I think kind of all means all. Then you don't get any mention of the 3 wives until verse 18. Quick quiz, does 18 come before or after 12? Comes after. And again, Joshua, second witness, and again, it's just commentary, but it shows the Hebrew mindset, what they believed when they were writing these commentary. The 3 wives weren't picked until 7 days before the flood. And you'll notice that their parents didn't get on board, neither did any of their brothers or any other siblings if they had any. So, I mean, when your entire argument, your entire thesis is from silence, you've got nothing. You don't even have Genesis 6:4, in my opinion. Going back to what we discussed earlier, the same that we're talking about in Genesis chapter 6:4 are from Olam, not last week when we saw them in the land of Canaan. So, to me, the entire argument falls apart, and there's no justification for saying that all of us would be genetically tainted, because this solves that problem right there. So, and I think it's considerably worse for God to not address the root cause. If he allows some lingering consequences for his own divine purposes, see, the problem is both of us have the same exact net result either way. Either way, we end up with God in his sovereignty apparently wanting Nephilim to still be around after the flood. Either way. Now, which makes more sense? To allow angels to pick up where they left off and take advantage of 4 helpless women? Or to, okay, you guys have screwed up flesh so bad, but I'll at least leave you an out where you could potentially have normal children, if you obey me. The sins of the fathers are passed down, what? To the 3rd and 4th generation. It's a genetic issue. Sin is a genetic issue. So what determined the odds here, as to whether or not they had 50-50 normal or 50-50 hybrid, to me would be an issue of obedience or disobedience. The obedient are blessed for 1,000 generations. Great, that's awesome. You mentioned Abraham is the target. Well, if Abraham's the target and the seed and everything's going to come from Abraham, why didn't it would make more sense for the fallen angels to breed into Shem's line? Why don't they just jump into Shem's line? Why did they go, hey, let's go play with Ham over here if the real target is Abram? I mean, that does. If your goal is to mess up the seed, then you mess up the seed line. Why are you going off to this other group over here? So, textually speaking, I think you guys are arguing from silence and really don't have a leg to stand on.